Prepared what I'm going to present to you tonight by way of a PowerPoint presentation so that we can go through it step by step, because some people, when they see something, it becomes easier for them to remember and to relate to it. So I want to join between audio and visual, because sometimes as people listen, ek might miskien nie so lekker stem ook het, daar val die mense so maar nie slaap ook. You understand? As jy kyk net in die Jumu'as, meeste mense het hulle beste slaap op 'n Vrydag in die Jumu'a. You understand? En daar is ook 'n imam weet altyd wie se mense wat oplet en wie lê, want hy kan sien hoe so kop hang ook. You understand? But the idea is to make the presentation also stimulating in the sense that you are able to hear what I'm saying, you are able to relate to it, you are able to see it, and even though I might have a different approach to what you may have experienced if you've attended another class for an Umrah. I do also intend to compile the notes that I'll be using, and then at the end, inshallah, we'll put it together and we'll even try to present it in the form of a little bit of a Umrah guide. So for now, my intention is actually just to focus on Umrah and not Hajj. Although the two are connected, there's a very big connection between Umrah and Hajj. But the reason I want to first of all only concentrate on Umrah for now is because there are a number of people that have the intention to go for Umrah. And Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing from Allah Ta'ala that so many people are now going for Umrah. In fact, some people are complaining that it's taking so long, to get accreditation and go for Hajj. But that is the negative. The positive of that is that so many more people are now opting to go for Umrah while they are waiting for the accreditation for Hajj. So there's also a positive spin of, in fact, I can relate to you let me rather just start, no? Okay. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, nahnu nusalli ala Rasulil Karim, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. قال تبارك وتعالى وأتموا الحج والعمرة لله. Alhamdulillah, we praise and we thank Allah Ta'ala that we can have this course that relates specifically to Umrah. And Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran وَأَتِمُوا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, that complete the Hajj and the Umrah for the sake of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So from this ayah, Imam Shafi rahimahullah, in this ayah and also from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he draws the ruling that it is equally wajib upon us to perform Umrah and Hajj. Although, because of the cost involved, many people prefer to join the Umrah with Hajj. But that is why you get three different kinds of Hajj. You get the Ifrat Hajj, you get the Kiran Hajj, and you get the Tamattu Hajj. And the only difference between those three different methods of performing Hajj is whether or not you are joining Umrah with it. And when you are starting with your Hajj. So one of the forms of Hajj that is generally performed by us coming from South Africa is referred to as Tamattu Hajj. And Tamattu Hajj is where a person joins his Umrah and his Hajj in one journey, but in two separate ihrams. He joins the Hajj and Umrah in one journey with two separate ihrams. He goes first to Makkah in the days preceding the days of Hajj, and then he performs Umrah. And then he frees himself out of that ihram, which he has to wear for Umrah, by making a hadi, a sacrifice of a sheep. And then when the days of Hajj arrive, he puts on a new ihram with a new intention, and then he goes and he performs his Hajj. And this allowance to do it in two separate ihrams, for this the person needs to make a sacrifice to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. They call it Dami Shukr. Dami Shukr, the blood of shukr. In other words, you are sacrificing that sheep as a means of shukr to Allah Ta'ala for allowing you to perform Umrah and Hajj in one journey. That being said, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he prohibited people at a certain point in time from performing tamattu Hajj. And the wisdom in that was that it allowed that people would now come for Umrah at times other than when they come for Hajj, because that was his objective. His objective was that people must come for Umrah at a time other than when they come for Hajj. And the wisdom in that is that as a result of it, the Baytullah would have been occupied by people coming for Umrah throughout the entire Islamic year. So there was a great wisdom in that, and that is why we have that practice up until today, that people go for Umrah, throughout the year. And Umrah, that is the main focus of this course. It's a 6 weeks course. Tonight will be the introduction, and I'm hopeful that everybody will be attending the course for the duration of the 6 weeks, inshallah. And I'm very hopeful also that you will find it beneficial, inshallah, because Umrah is a very unique ibadah, and it is something that every Muslim should aspire to do. And one of the things that we should never ever have as an obstacle to performing either Umrah or Hajj is the lack of financial means. Because you will find that in most instances, it is the poor people that go for Hajj and Umrah. In most instances, it is actually the poor people that go for Hajj and Umrah. All that is required is that a person makes a sincere intention, he sets a goal, and he strives towards it, and then he will find that Allah Ta'ala will grant him the means from Allah Ta'ala's side. That is why, I always mention when we speak about Hajj and Umrah, that my late Ustad, Mullah Ismail Ali, may Allah Ta'ala illuminate his grave, he used to say that no person goes for Hajj or Umrah. Nobody goes for Hajj or Umrah. Rather, you are taken for Hajj and Umrah. Because you don't go by your means, you don't go by your abilities and capabilities. You are able to perform Hajj and Umrah because Allah Ta'ala takes you, and in taking you, Allah Ta'ala provides you with the means also. So imagine, Allah Ta'ala takes you to His house at His expense. That is in reality what Hajj and Umrah amounts to. So that being said, we will be focusing primarily, on Umrah. I also want to make it clear right from the beginning also, I think it's necessary, normally they have a disclaimer. So I am not associated with any Umrah group or Hajj group. As most of you know, I'm actually more associated with Sawuk rather than with any of the groups. So I am not doing this class on behalf of any Umrah group. And it is also not as a means to starting an Umrah group. It is purely and only with the intention of educating people and advising them on how to get the maximum benefits from the Umrah that they perform. Whether you go with whoever else you go, but at least from my side, because I have seen many people go for Umrah and many people go for Hajj. Alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity. I've done my own Fard Hajj, and thereafter I've been on Hajj with the Sawuk mission team for 5 years, during which I've been part of the Hajj experience. I performed numerous Umrahs also, Alhamdulillah. So I have a little bit of experience from which I'm drawing. But one of the things that I've observed is that many a person comes for Hajj or Umrah without really knowing what Hajj and Umrah is about. The ibadah of Hajj and Umrah. So that is why you will find that, in introducing the course, my objectives are spirituality, and that you will be able to perform a beneficial Hajj and that you'll be, Umrah, and you'll be able to perform a practical Umrah. So it will be spiritual, it will be purposeful, in that you will know what you are doing and why you are doing it, and what you have to do from beginning to end. And also that it must be practical, that you have certain knowledges and tools at your disposal that will make your Hajj practically, or your Umrah practically easy for you. Because if a person doesn't know, then he'll be there, but he won't be able to actually derive the benefit. And he's spending all of that money, but he's not actually able to derive the benefit that he's supposed to derive, because he doesn't know what he's actually supposed to do. There used to be a joke that we've heard from our seniors, that a group of people, they were on Hajj, and they had the matawf. And people generally think that if they've got the matawf there and the spiritual guide there, then they don't need to do anything. But the reality is, it is your Umrah. Just like how you come to the Masjied to perform your Salah, you are going to the Baytullah to perform your Umrah. So it is not the matawf's Umrah, or the spiritual guide's Umrah, or the travel agent's Umrah. And then very often people put all of those demands on the matawf, or the spiritual guide, or the agent, where it is almost as if they are expecting this person to do the ibadah on their behalf. And the reason for that is because of their own lack of preparation and their own lack of knowledge. One of the stories, as I mentioned, were told to us by our seniors. The people were on Hajj, and the matawf was taking them for ziyarah. And then, as it so happened, for whatever reason, the matawf scratched in his bum. And then all the people behind him started scratching in their bum. Because they thought that there's some significance to what the matawf is doing. So when he scratched his bum, they scratched their bum. Subhanallah. Which is completely unrelated to the ibadah or even to the ziyarah. But this is the problem you sit with when people themselves don't actually know what they are supposed to do. People leave themselves completely to the devices and the mercy of the agent and the matawf. And I think one of the most valuable advices that was given to me when I went for Hajj, for my Farad Hajj, alhamdulillah, was by Mullah Abdul Khaliq Ali. And he said to me, Maulana, you are traveling with a Hajj operator, but it is not his Hajj. It is your Hajj. You have to ensure that you make the most of it, and that you are able to get the maximum benefit of the time that you are going to spend there. Because you are going to spend time there, you are going to spend your money there, and your family, at that time our children were still young, they are going to have to cope without you and your wife at home. So you need to make sure that you do justice to your family, you do justice to yourself, and you do justice to the money that you are spending. Otherwise, there are, as the hadith also mentioned, that many people will come to Makkah, but few will actually come for Hajj and Umrah. Because of how people do not know to utilize their time. They do not actually know how to perform the ibadah. And I can tell you, I don't think there's an easier ibadah to perform, than Umrah and Hajj. It is extremely easy. But be that as it may, Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. So tonight is basically for the purposes, of doing an introduction, and inshallah, hopefully next week, we'll be able to have a more interactive session, inshallah. So with regard to the Umrah, the technical definition of Umrah, what is Umrah? Right? Umrah is an act of ibadah. That is the first thing we must know, irrespective the actions involved in it. Because when you look at the actions involved in it, it doesn't actually look like an ibadah. Because we understand generally, ibadah, if we look at salah, salah is generally our yardstick for what ibadah is. And that yardstick of salah for ibadah is an act of, devotion consisting of certain actions. But then we also have a number of limitations in the salah. So for example, we are limited in terms of the number of movements we can do. if you do too many movements in salah, salah is spoiled. If you are limited by the things that you may say in salah, if you say unnecessary things in salah, the salah also becomes spoiled. Whereas Umrah is completely opposite to that, because Umrah demands movement. And Umrah demands that you should, there's no restriction actually in what you are allowed to speak and say and ask from Allah Ta'ala whilst you are engaged in your Umrah. You are restricted in terms of your unnecessary talks, yes. But other than that, like in our tasbihat, we are limited. In our qiyam, when we do our surah Fatiha and our portion of Quran, we are limited. Whereas in Umrah and Hajj, we do not have those limitations. So in that regard, it is very different to our salah. But it is important for us to understand that it is still an act of ibadah. Because many people, they lose sight of the fact that they are actually engaging in an ibadah. Especially if one sees what's happening today in Umrah and Hajj. Because many people's Hajj and Umrah is actually on social media. The most part of everything that they are doing is on social media. So to what extent does one then have a degree of devotion in your ibadah? Whereas Umrah demands that in spite of your movement, in spite of your speech, you must remain conscious enough of the fact that you are in a state of ibadah, so as to maintain focus and devotion in it. In salah, it is already difficult. And I'm speaking of my own experience. I don't know about you, but it is sometimes very difficult to maintain your focus, your devotion, and your concentration in salah from the time you say Allahu Akbar until the time you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's very difficult because the mind starts wandering. Sometimes you become confused in what you are saying. Now, how still then is it not more difficult when you are engaged in an ibadah that allows you free movement, where everybody else around you and everything else around you is in movement? So in that environment, if we are in salah and somebody next to you is the fruturah, then it's a disturbance, it's an agitation, it irks you. And then you think of yourself, ja, God Allah, maar wie die boetera nie is in salah nie, man. Hoe is ons in salah? En die eerste ding agter die salah, sy sal so vererg al, sy gaan of vir hom iets sê, of sy gaan net opstaan en uitloop. Because you've now become annoyed. Now imagine in that ibadah where everybody is in movement, and if you stand still, it's a problem. In salah, if you move, it's a problem. In Umrah, if you stand still, it's a problem. Because the Umrah demands from you to be moving. So therefore, it's important that from the very word go, the person must tune himself in. He must convince himself that he is in a state of ibadah. And that state of ibadah consists of entering into a state of ihram. Entering into a state of ihram. Now, ihram has got three meanings. The one meaning that we generally understand to be is the clothing that the person wears. That the man, he wears a particular kind of clothing, so he is now in ihram. The lady wears certain kinds of clothing. Generally they wear white, although there's no specified dress for ladies when they put on clothing. They can wear anything. They can wear their normal clothing also, provided that what is required to be covered in terms of aura is covered, then the ladies are in ihram. So that tells us that the clothing in itself is not alone ihram. The fact that ladies can wear ordinary clothing. When the men wear ihram, there's a restriction for them. They cannot wear stitched clothing. And in the explanation of stitched clothing, it means that normal kind of clothing that takes the shape of the body. Because we've got arms for our shirts or our jackets, and we've got, leg areas for the pants that we wear. So that kind of clothing that takes on the shape of the body is prohibited for men, but not for women. So that tells us that ihram is therefore more than just the clothing, and it is. Ihram also refers to the intention that the person makes when he puts on that clothing, and the result of it is also ihram, because ihram means restrictions that automatically come upon that person when you put together the intention with the clothing. So this state of ihram, it is important. I'm highlighting these areas in the definition because these are going to be the areas that we are going to further discuss when we deal with the other, segments of this course. So it's important for us therefore to understand that number one, Umrah, it is an act of ibadah that requires from a person to be in a state of ihram, which relates to three things: the clothing, the intention, and the state of prohibition. Then the next is, what must the person do in the state of ihram? Circumambulating the Kaaba. He must go around the Kaaba and he must perform tawaf. And he must perform one tawaf. He must perform how many tawafs? How many tawafs? One. Sometimes people become confused and they misunderstand when they see that the tawaf requires 7 circumambulations. And then they think that you must perform 7 tawafs. The 7 times that you go around the Kaaba constitutes 1 tawaf. So you only need to perform 1 tawaf, but that 1 tawaf consists out of going around the Kaaba in a particular manner and in a particular sequence 7 times. Some ulama say that the 7 times relates to the 7 parts of the salah, because at the Baytullah, so instead of doing salah in a certain way, the tawaf represents the act of ibadah. But we would have assumed that the highest act of ibadah is the salah, because we have to do that every day. And even the malaika, they are in certain postures of salah. So we would have assumed that coming to the Baytullah, the most preferred act of worship would have been in the form of salah. Yet when we come there, we find it is actually something completely different. It is something that to some extent goes contrary to many of the rituals and the rules of salah. But that is the demand of Allah Ta'ala, how Allah Ta'ala wants us to worship Him at that place and in that state. Then after the going 7 times around the Kaaba for the tawaf, the person must do the sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And the sa'a basically means to do a brisk walk. To do a brisk walk between Safa and Marwa. Now, as we all know that this action basically relates to the action of Hadrat Hajara at the time of seeking water for Nabi Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. She ran 7 times up and down from Safa to Marwa, Safa to Marwa. Now again, one time is not from Safa to Marwa and back to Safa. From Safa to Marwa is 1. From Marwa to Safa is twice. So if you add it up, you will start by Safa and you will end by Marwa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it concludes with that. And then thereafter, a person needs to either shave his hair or clip or taksir. Shave the hair or make taksir of the hair, which means to just cut a portion of it, in order for the person to be freed in order to come out of ihram. Now, you can obviously hear from all of this that Umrah, which is also an aspect of Hajj, because some of these aspects also fall into Hajj, is a completely different act of ibadah to what we are generally used to. But inshallah, in our future discussions, inshallah, we will go into greater detail with regards to those different components. And then also as far as the ihram is concerned, there was a picture some time ago of a lady wearing the ihram, like how the men wear the ihram. Her head was open, and the arm also was open with the ihram. Ek weet nie of sy iets onder die ihram aangeheer het nie, maar anyway, you know, like how the men wear the ihram, because in many books you might find that when they describe the ihram, then they indicate to how the men, because only the men wear different to what they would normally wear in terms of clothing, but not the ladies. So this lady, having done a self-study on Umrah, came and she wore her ihram like how the men wear their ihram. So these are some of the things that we obviously need to be aware of. We also know of people who did 7 tawafs. Do you know how many times they went around the Kaaba? 49 times. And they did the sa'i. They also understood that 7 times is one sa'i, and they had to do it 7 times. 49 times around the Baytullah, and 49 times between Safa and Marwa. Now, why do people find themselves engaged in such kind of difficulties? Because people do not know what are the actual rules of the ibadah. So may Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. So from amongst the virtues of performing Umrah is that it is one of the best and greatest deeds in the sight of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Why? Because it involves traveling and leaving one's home in order to go to the Baytullah. And it is mentioned also that the performance of an Umrah, it expiates the sins, you know, of a person committed prior to that. In fact, there's a hadith that mentions from one Hajj to the next Hajj, and from one Umrah to the next Umrah, and from one Jumu'ah to the next Jumu'ah, and from one Ramadan to the next Ramadan, and from one Salah to the next Salah. It removes all of the sin that was committed prior to that. And one of the other, I'm going to mention some of the other benefits of Umrah. So therefore, Umrah is a holy pilgrimage that is undertaken. It is referred to as the minor pilgrimage, the minor Hajj, so to say. You get Hajj and then you get Umrah, but because there's a similarity between many of the things you do in Umrah and in Hajj, there's certain components like the Tawaf and the Sa'i, you also do that in Hajj. So because of the similarity there, then it is referred to as the minor pilgrimage, but it is undertaken and can be performed only in Makkah. There's no other place you can perform Umrah and Hajj. You can only do it there. Salah, as Muslims, we know we can do anywhere. To fast, we can do anywhere. As far as our zakah is concerned, it is considered that we should give zakat in the city where we stay, but it is also allowed that you can give your zakat in other places. But Hajj and Umrah, you cannot do anywhere else besides in Makkatul Mukarramah. So therefore, it is important that we must understand one of the differences between Hajj and Umrah. Hajj can only be performed in a specified period of time. You cannot perform Hajj out of that time. That's why unique Arafah, a unique place. You go there on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, it means absolutely nothing. You go there on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, it means absolutely nothing. You go there on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, it means everything. Because it means your entire life of its past has been forgiven, and you leave there like a brand new person. Yet, the day before and the day after, it had absolutely no significance. But you must be there. So, the beauty of Umrah and Hajj is that you cannot perform it anywhere else besides at the Baytullah in Makkatul Mukarramah. Umrah can be performed anytime. In reality, Umrah can also be performed during the time of Hajj. Although Umrah is generally done before Hajj, in terms of the rulings of Sharia, you should be able, while the people are on Arafah for Hajj, you should be able to perform Umrah, because you are in the Baytullah. So in any time during the course of the Hajj, you should technically be able to perform Umrah as well. However, because of the crowds, the Saudi government has made a regulatory stipulation. This is not a Shari'i stipulation. It is a regulatory stipulation from the Saudi government in order to enable them to control crowds. Because what we must keep in mind is that, as I mentioned it also earlier tonight in the class we did after Maghrib, that when the laws of Sharia was promulgated, there wasn't 2 million people at the time. At the present, we are 2 billion Muslims. We are 2 billion Muslims. Do you know how much is a billion? A billion is 1,000 million. So it is a million times 1,000. That is a billion. So when 2 million Muslims come for Hajj, in reality, it is a drop in the ocean compared to the number of Muslims. But we must keep in mind that how many people can be accommodated on Arafah? How many people can be accommodated? Because Arafah is a specified piece of land. How many people can come into our masjid? It is said for Jumu'ah, we can accommodate, or Eid, we can accommodate 1,000 people. We can accommodate, as I don't know, Buin Ona. 1,000 people, 800 at the bottom and 200 at the top. 1,000 people. So this is the designated area for the masjid. Now, if we want to argue that we can fit 2,000 people into the masjid, is it possible? 3,000? Why not? Because the masjid is a designated piece of area. The same with Arafah. It has only got so much space. So because of all the things that has now been put onto Arafah, they can also only accommodate certain amount of people. The same with Mina. Perhaps in the past they could accommodate 6 million, 7 million to what people have said. But at that time, all of the facilities that is on Arafah and Mina was not there. It was just an open piece of land. So when you have roads there, you lose land. When you have buildings there, you lose land. When you have toilet facilities, you lose land. When you've got clinics, you lose land. That could have been occupied in the past by Hujjaj. And now we can't. Now the same with the Baytullah. The Masjidul Haram has been expanded. Does that mean more people can go for Hajj and Umrah? Why not? Because the area that was expanded is not the Mataf. The area is expanded to accommodate for people for Salah, because they've accommodated for the people that come for Umrah, and they've accommodated for the people of Makkah itself. So there's only so much space. That is why they've got these regulations in place to limit the number of people that comes, especially during the time of Hajj. And Umrah, one can do it any time of the year, and you are not only allowed to repeat, in other words, you can do more than one Umrah. In fact, there's also a discussion about doing more than one Umrah in one journey, which is allowed. You can do more than one Umrah. In other, those people who know, sometimes the agents, the people don't know, they'll give you a 2 Umrah Hajj package. Allahu Akbar. And then they charge you only 15,000 rand extra, which is a bargain. Ek weet vir 2 Umrahs. Weet jy hoeveel kos 'n Umrah? Dis klomp geld. So now you can get for 15,000 rand extra, you can get another Umrah. If you were in Saudi, you could have paid 15 riyals for the taxi and also gotten another Umrah, which means that Umrah would have costed you 100 rand. You could have gotten another Umrah if you were there for only 100 rand. But that shows that if people fall for that, it's because the people don't know. They don't know the rules of how to go about in getting 2 Umrahs in one trip, where you spend one amount of money and you can get 2 Umrahs, you can get 3 Umrahs, as many Umrahs as you are physically able to perform. You can, Nabi Sallam did 4 Umrahs, not in one go, no? 4 different years. The Umrah of Hudaybiyah, the Umrah of Qada, the Umrah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's Hajj, and the Umrah of Ji'arana. So there's different miqats. So if you are financially able to pay the few riyals, it will be much cheaper. Then you can every day go to a different miqat and perform a different Umrah. You just go there, put on your ihram, and you can perform a different Umrah. You know? But if people don't know, then other people can make money of them. And that is why I want to enlighten people so that you can have a beneficial and practical and cost-effective Umrah. So that you don't have to spend unnecessary money op a 2 Umrah Hajj package. Because you pay diamond van geld for 3 Umrahs and it could have cost you 100 rand only. You understand? So at any time during the Islamic lunar year, as I mentioned, that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam allowed people to do the Tamattu Umrah and Hajj, but Umar prohibited it so that people must come for Umrah, because he said that it is not befitting that the Baytullah should be empty at any point in time. We know that in the COVID time, there was a beautiful picture where only one cleaner was on the mataf. One person was on the mataf making salah during COVID. That one cleaner. Can you imagine that person's status? So we have to go to Makkatul Mukarramah only there. So therefore it is important for us to appreciate the sanctity of Makkah. You cannot do this Umrah anywhere else. So when you go to the city of Makkatul Mukarramah, appreciate the holiness of Makkah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Makkah the holiest, there's an ikhtilaf, place in the world. So listen carefully. It is said that the holiest piece of earth, the holiest piece of earth in the world, some ulama of the opinion, is that piece of earth which surrounds the body of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that is the holiest piece of earth. The holiest city is Makkatul Mukarramah. Because Allah Ta'ala has decreed it like that. And Allah Ta'ala made Makkatul Mukarramah holy from the very inception of creating the earth. Now imagine that place that Allah Ta'ala already made holy before you and I even came into existence. We go and then we violate the sanctity of Makkah by behaving ourselves in a manner that is not befitting the holiness of Makkah. So when we observe this, Allah Ta'ala invites us, we become the guest of Allah. Now when you become the guest in somebody's house, that doesn't mean that you can do in the house what you want. You must, the rule of the host is to spoil his guest. The rule of the host is to spoil his guest. But the rule of the guest is to respect the host. So when you are in the house of the host, you must obviously respect the house and respect the rules of the house. And Allah Ta'ala has made this land sacred, the city sacred, and Allah Ta'ala had permitted certain things to be done in it, and Allah Ta'ala has prohibited certain things to be done in it. So therefore it is important for us to come to know what are the things that are allowed and what are the things that are prohibited. Because the acts of ibadah, for example, salah, in the Masjidul Haram is multiplied how many times? 100,000 times. 100,000 times multiplied. The good deeds. Now, what do you think is the multiplication of the bad deeds? If the good deeds are multiplied so much, what is the multiplication? If in that place where you earn so much reward for doing a good thing, how much do you think is the multiplication of the bad deeds? Now, very often we lose sight of that aspect of being in the city of Makkatul Mukarramah. We think about the rewards, but we don't think about the consequences of doing the wrong things while we are in Makkatul Mukarramah. And this was made holy already from The day when Allah created the heavens and the earth. No? So if Allah Ta'ala has afforded us, to be part of the people that have been allowed entry into the city, entry into the Baytullah, then it is therefore necessary for us to observe the sanctity of this place. Because Allah Ta'ala had great Anbiya like Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Ismail, also Nabi Sallam. They were people that were instructed to build, to reconstruct, as well as to maintain the Baytullah. And it is a source of great, honor if people are given the opportunity to sanctify the Baytullah. So when we are there, this is part of the test of Umrah. Part of the test of Umrah when we are engaged in our act of Umrah is to see to what extent we keep in mind that we are in the Baytullah. Keep in mind that we are in a place that is made holy by Allah. Or do we forget that? Do we forget we're in the house of Allah? Do we forget the holiness of the place? That is part of the test of Umrah. Because any ibadah comes with its test. In Salah, it's about your concentration, Sometimes you have the loud whispers. Oh, Ya Allah. Sometimes you have the guy who's fruitel langs jou. Sometimes you have the flies. Sometimes it's the heat. Sometimes it's the cold. Sometimes it's die matte wat nie lekker riekie. As jy in sujood gaan nie. So there's different things that test you in your salah. In the same way, in the Umrah, there are also many things that test us. And one of the great tests that we have is to see whether or not we will observe the sanctity of the house of Allah. Because there's a combination of the ibadullah and the huququllah and the huququl ibad. The rights of Allah and the rights of the slaves of Allah. Because we are in a group. You are in a jamaat. You are along with other people. So Allah's got rights over you. Daar is 'n groot microscope, no? Daai tawaf. In fact, the tawaf actually shows you who you are. The tawaf will show you who pious is jy regtig. Because it is a very challenging environment. Jy het die huququllah op jou, because jy's in die huis van Allah. Jy moet jou umrah uitdra. Jy moet jou tawaf doen. Jy moet conscious wees dat dis die huis van Allah. En op die ander tyd is daar die huququl ibad, die regte van mense. Jy moet nie vir hulle stoot nie. Jy moet nie met hulle lelik wees nie. Jy moet nie met hulle beskof wees nie. Jy moet almal daai dinge tolereer daar. En op die einde van die dag moet jy actually soos 'n pop lyk daar, want jy moet nou die almal die jou tande byt, jy moet op jou tong byt, jy moet almal die dinge doen, because this is the test of Umrah. That is what the tawaf does. The tawaf is there to see what you are made of. So when we are performing Umrah, part of the objectives is to allow ourselves as individuals to draw closer to Allah Ta'ala, to seek forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala, taqarrub ila Allah. Imagine you are in the house of Allah, but you're not conscious of Allah. You spend all of that money and you've traveled all of that distance and all of the things that goes with it. And once you are there, you do not use the opportunity to come close to Allah Ta'ala. It is to seek forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala. It is for a person to renew his iman. Because for most of us, when we come to the Baytullah, in reality, it is actually a miracle. We get to live a miracle. We become the miracle. Why? Because by our own selves, ek is seker niemand van ons. When we've gone for Umrah or even for Hajj, it might be that we can ourselves not imagine how it was that we were able to get there. Jy skrik ook maar wanneer jy daar op die mataf sê, maar ek het mos op die mataf, man, dis mos die Kaaba. You can't fathom how it was actually possible for you to get there. So you are living a miracle. You become the miracle. And all of that was by the grace of Allah. Now how it's possible then in that condition
you become unmindful of Allah. You forget Allah, you're not conscious of Allah. And this does not increase your faith. Allah Ta'ala grants, impossible things to happen, unimaginable things to happen, so that you and I must come to realize that I didn't do this. Allah did this. Allah did this. And that because Allah did this, this increases our iman in Allah. It renews our iman. Like my Ustad used to say, Allah is Allah. Allah is Allah. And that you realize on Umrah and Hajj. When you come there and you think, you can't imagine how it became possible. So may Allah Ta'ala grant us this experience also. Umrah is also an opportunity for a person to purify his heart. Also his heart te skoonmaak. And this is an important part of the ibadah. We need to learn to purify our hearts. That is why, alhamdulillah, in our masjid every Sunday we have a program here. It's a tazkiyah program, Islahul Nafs program, where we focus on the purification of the hearts. Because, one of the things that is there is the Hajar al-Aswad. Now, initially, the Hajar al-Aswad was a white stone from Jannah. Now, there's fragments of it there. But it is said that that stone turns black because of the sin of people. It is our sins. And our sins emanate from our hearts. So therefore, we have a beautiful custom here in Cape Town. Although I also note that it is something that people are starting to neglect. When we go to greet people, that we make suluh with them. But when we go to make suluh with them, do not genuine. Die kaartjie staan daar, ons vir haar ma, vir alles wat ons gedoen het, witend en onwitend, en ons, versoek 'n slaaf wat van een en almal. But when you ask maaf, and very often die mense wat ons witend kwaad aangedoen het, dan vra ons vir hulle, vir maaf wat iemand gedoen het, witend of onwitend. But you never made right with the people. You don't also generally ask. To ask maaf from the people means that we must get the people's pardon, not just a lyntjie. And sometimes we take it for granted. Hulle moet mos nou vir my maaf hê because ek gaan nou vir Hajj. No, it's not like that. Of ek gaan nou vir Umrah. Part of that culture in the past was that people used it as an opportunity to really make suluh. Why? Because they wanted to go and meet Allah with a pure heart. They wanted to meet Allah with a clean heart, free of animosity, free of hatred, free of jealousy. All of those things we need to remove from our hearts. It is there to experience a sense of unity with our fellow Muslims. Because people from all over the world come there. And then we come to realize, that we are not the only Muslims. Sometimes in our community here in Cape Town, we think that only what we have and what we know and what we do, this is Islam. But the teachings of Islam is very vast. So when we are there, we come to sometimes see that people are doing things differently. And when those people do those things differently, how we can develop, it makes us broad-minded. So that how we can come to think that, hey, die wat ons ken is nie ons nie. And how we very often can find, mense prys ons altyd die mense van die Kaap. Daar is die bittere mense as die Kaap en ons is so generous en ons is so nice en ons is so hospitable. Ons het miskien once upon a time die qualities gehad, but many of those good qualities are leaving us. And then when you come there, you see the good qualities of others. I'm going to conclude here because I really don't want to go too far after 12:30. Inshallah, hopefully next week. I will continue on this and then carry on with the next part. But I would like to end with this, what they call advice, an anecdote. It was an advice that was given to us when we were out in the path of Allah Ta'ala for 1 year. One of the ulama came to us. He told us that you find two small animals with complex eyes. One is the bee and one is the fly. And both of them will go into the same garden, but they will look for completely different things. The bee in that garden looks for the colorful flowers and it makes contact with those flowers. And when he makes contact, he does two things. He gets covered with pollen and he extracts the nectar. Because of the pollen that he gets from those flowers, he pollinates the other flowers, and in doing so, more flowers grow. And with the nectar that he extracted, he is able to make honey. So there will be an abundance and increase in beauty, and there will also be honey that is a cure. Why? Because he looks for the beauty. Then you get another one is the fly. He will go into that same garden, and in spite of all of the beautiful flowers and all of the beautiful colors, hy gaan verby alles daai vlieg. He's going to look for the dirt. He's going to look for the dirt. And then he's going to go into contact with the dirt. And then he becomes covered with the dirt. He is filled with dirt. He is filled with impurity. He is filled with germs. He remains full of germs. As a fly, he remains full of germs. And wherever he goes, he spreads the germs. He becomes a carrier of sickness. And in doing so, whereas the one produced the cure, the one produced the harm. The one produces sickness, and the one produces the cure. So they told us, mankind are like a garden of flowers. But amongst those flowers, there's also dirt. But you will get what you look for. If you are like the bee, you're going to look past the dirt and you're going to see the good, and you will be able to take benefit from it and multiply it. But if you are like a fly, you're only going to look for the bad things the people do. You're going to notice the wrongs that the people do. And instead of taking benefit from the good that there is, you are also only going to increase in bad, and you are going to spread the bad. So when we go for this kind of activity of Umrah and Hajj, you will find people do many funny things. People might even do certain wrong things. You and I might know it's wrong. That person might not necessarily know it's wrong. You and I might think that person to be a great evildoer, which in reality that person might be innocent in what he does. People go there to do good. Generally, people go there to do good. Seek for the good that they do, and goodness will increase in your life, and you will be able to share that goodness with others like the bee. But if you're only going to see the wrongs that the people do, then wrong is going to come into your life. And through the wrong that you spread, no goodness will increase. And there is an abundance of evil existing in the world. What we should be striving for is the increase in good. And that is what our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to do. To obliterate evil and to establish good. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all this tawfiq. I hope that everybody was able to take benefit from this introduction that we had tonight. So inshallah, next week we'll make better arrangements, inshallah, so that we are able to have a much more beneficial interaction. And I would like to thank everybody who has come. I'll be very honest with you, I've been completely surprised by the number of people that attended. I never expected this amount of people to come. Because for most of the other classes that we have about 5-6 people that actually come. So for this amount of people that did take the trouble to come, I'm very grateful to you. May Allah Ta'ala reward you. May Allah Ta'ala guide me and inspire me so that I may present to you what is beneficial to you, so that when you do go for Umrah, inshallah, your Umrah will be a very enriching experience, and that all that I am hopeful for, inshallah, when you do go, that when you make a dua at one point in time, you will mention my name also. And may Allah Ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وادخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز غفار يا رب العالمين.
اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. So before we go, I just want to know on what we've done tonight as an introduction. Is there anybody who's got any question? Anybody's got any questions so far? If there's any questions that you have, or that's something that comes to mind when you at home or something, write it down, and then next week you forward the questions, especially the ladies also, and we will deal then first with the questions before we carry on with the next part of the presentation next week, inshallah. I don't know if Mr. Shahid has made a recording of it for tonight. What we will do, inshallah, we will request people to give their telephone numbers if they are comfortable with it. And then we can request Mr. Shahid perhaps to make a WhatsApp group for this class, and then the weekly recordings, inshallah, we will then share in that group, inshallah, so that people have the opportunity to listen to it again. So next week, inshallah, we'll have a book at the back or somewhere. People can just write down their names and the telephone numbers. We'll give it to Mr. Shahid, the former WhatsApp group, and then we will share this week's recording in that group, and then subsequently the next week's recordings also in there. But that is, if you are not comfortable giving your telephone number, no problem. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all tawfiq wa akhiru dawana.